Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, covering A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host Switcheroo, the rereading. Return to Westeros HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits since I need to look up that date. In these chapters, 24 and 25, we have Cersei and Brienne. Two women who are denied opportunities because they are women. But one of them definitely deserves them more than the other. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now, kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
Okie dokie.
Another Cersei chapter.
This bitch is popping up everywhere, and she is so long this time. This is a long chapter.
It is. They were both long.
Yeah.
She's so fucking funny to me, guys. I cannot get over. I know I have said this, and it's not interesting to hear me say it again, but you guys, I cannot get over Cersei.
She is very... She's full of surprises in how she has absolutely no surprises.
My God, being in her POV is like, I don't know what kind of substances the audience has ingested over their lifetime. And I'm not going to get into any particulars of my own history, but it is reminiscent of like, it's very reminiscent of certain things, and there's a particular part of her chapter this time where she is talking to Tommen, and she is like, "This is my time to shine, God damn it!"
Yeah.
I had to wait all this time for my turn. You can wait for your turn. Ma'am, that is like your 7-year-old son. What are you doing?
Yep. And she sort of like makes it sound more palatable by pretending that it's Marjorie that's trying to steal her place in the sun away from her. But it ends up being Tommen that is really accused of this because he's like falling for her wiles or whatever.
Yeah, when she straight up says he can wait his turn, I was like, oh my God, she is actually really talking about him though. This is not just deflected like, animosity towards Marjorie. There's like animosity building towards her own son. In my opinion, what she does really is the opposite. It's not so much that she's talking to Tommen this way because, there's an element of like distrusting Marjorie and everything, but I think she has a lot of animosity towards her son, and she lies to herself and thinks that it's Marjorie's influence that she's mad about. But really, it's just directed towards her son.
That makes sense.
Because she's got, it hasn't really come out explicitly towards either of the kids yet. Like with her, especially I don't know if it'll ever really come out explicitly about Joffrey, because now that he's gone, she has got him in this weird, like, idolized thing that she's got in her head. But there's a lot of resentment. Cersei's resentment towards men in general that she views have like oppressed her, and it's not just that she views. It's partly true, right?
Sure,
but that's spilling over towards her son because he's another fucking man trying to like, snake her out of her chance to fucking, show the world what she can do.
Yes.
And it's like definitely bleeding over to the way she interacts with him and how she views him. But yeah, Cersei is like when you get really high and you start thinking you're like every idea you have is the best idea in the world, you know, like you're gonna fucking, you got $1 million idea, you're like up till 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, with your friend coming up with schemes and plans, and you know.
Oh man, and the difference is that she has the actual like resources to try and make this bad idea happen.
Yeah, now her latest escapade is now she has gotten the what is this family name? Is it
Stokeworths, yeah.
She has got them to agree to see that a mishap should befall our boy Bronn, right? Because he's getting too big for his britches. He has got some new knights in his employ, and Cersei is like, yeah, he's gonna raise an army if we don't nip it in the bud, right?
Yeah, she's framing it as he's gathering sellswords to him. And even I think Phales is like, I mean, he's hired some guards for his household. Is that what you're talking about? But she has a very, I mean, paranoia is not even really an adequate word, because it's just, what I love about that scene especially is that she's trying to be like, if something were to happen to him and he should suffer a mishap, and he says a mortal mishap, and she's like,
she thinks to herself,
really?
Like something like, no, I want him to stub his toe.
Yeah. And then she thinks, why are all of my actual friends fucking morons? And I just want her to take that next step.
Be like, is it me? Maybe my judgment is flawed.
If everybody on your side is incapable of critical thought in any way, that's you pulling those completely lacking in understanding people to you.
Oh my God.
That's a you problem.
I love that she is, whether it is a reflection of her poor judgment, like I joked, or a real reflection of her lack of critical thinking skills and ability to see sort of like the long game, that her choice in friends, I feel like that's not the right word, right? I don't like, because they're not friends, but her choice of allies, she's so disappointed in their abilities, but like you say, she never makes a connection that like, oh, maybe I'm picking the wrong people. But also, she, whether she realizes it or not, I think that she's actively picking people that she thinks she's smarter than.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Because then she feels like that gives her a leg up. But she's constantly lamenting how not smart her allies are. And it's like, ma'am, I need you to pick a lane.
Yes, it's a combo of picking people that she believes she can like manipulate because she's smarter. Also, though, thinking that she's smarter than most people. So that's never going to work out for her because she's just not. I'm sorry if you guys are hearing this. The dog keeps hitting his head on my desk. Go on over there, buddy. I'm sorry, but I can't pet you right now. He wants to play around. Oh, fuck. No, I did. Okay. Sorry, I was thinking maybe I forgot to give him his medication that sort of calms him down, but I did give it to him, so that should kick in any moment. But yeah, so thinking that you're smarter than everybody, but also wanting people who are going to do exactly what you say and not ask any questions are going to be people who either don't have a vested interest and are just doing what they need to do so that they can be done and go home. And those are the kind of people that are easy to get swayed to either side because they don't have a vested interest. Or you get people who really believe in your cause. And if you aren't going to be honest with them about what your cause is, if you're going to create this scenario, for example, that Cersei has here, where she's like, and I'm not saying that she doesn't believe that Bronn is bad news for her, but she turns on the tears and is doing the whole like, I'm so vulnerable kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't even sleep. I haven't had a good night's sleep since, they killed my son, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm living in fear. I have all this power and I'm ruling, but she's playing up this very like damsel in distress kind of,
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by snakes and the people at this table are the only people I could trust. And and she plays it so well that at one point, the guy is like, we promise we won't say anything. Please tell us what's on your mind. Tell us what's troubling you. So, like she makes it so that they have to pull it out of her because she's so reluctant and so terrified to even speak, what she's afraid of. And not for nothing, that's definitely a way to go. Like that's a very sound tactic that works to this day. So, I mean, we were always laughing at her, but like she has enough understanding. What is that expression? Like to like, what is it? A little bit of knowledge is worse than none at all, or something like that,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She's not completely incompetent. She's not a complete, dullard. You know what I mean? She's smart in her way. She's just not as smart as she thinks she is. That's really all it is. It's not that she's a complete, dolt.
Yeah.
But her estimation of herself is just so incredibly high and not really rooted in reality.
Yeah.
Which she is not really rooted in reality.
Indeed.
So it kind of like, it goes hand in hand.
That's and what I was getting at with like, if you're going to take this tact and going to try and trick them, you want people foolish enough to fall for your trick. You aren't also going to get people who are intelligent and able to like draw, you know what I'm saying?
If she spotted somebody in her inner circle, and I'm sure it's going to come out, we'll probably get there, somebody on the council, who she even suspects might be smarter than she thought they were, they're donezo.
Yep.
They're out the door.
Exactly.
Like, she's getting rid of them immediately. So she's crying all the time about being surrounded by people who aren't very smart. And the minute somebody shows, oh, they might be a lot smarter than I give them credit for, they're going to be that's going to be a wrap for their story.
Yes.
And then as soon as she's done dispatching them, she will go right back to crying about how there's nobody around her that's smart.
Oh, that's so true. This is
is
what you do, Cersei. You drive away all your friends.
I mean, she just... So her chapter opens and Tommen is throwing what I am assuming is an uncharacteristic tantrum that Cersei immediately identifies as being instigated by Marjorie whispering in Tommen's ear.
Correct.
He wants to sit on the throne because it belongs to him, and he also wants a cat, and he also thinks beets should be considered contraband, which he has my full support on that. I shared with you guys my beet story fairly recently. Not going to go back into it, but I believe that is a platform that he could run on and win, and he would have my vote. And yeah, and this is when she's basically telling him, you're still a little boy, and when you're grown, you'll be able to sit on the throne. And she has to ask him, like, where are you getting this idea from? Who told you that, you can do whatever you want? And Tommen almost immediately, mentions that it's Marjorie. And
it's so frustrating because he's so young and he doesn't really get the dynamic here.
Oh, no.
He knows they're enemies. He knows that they don't like each other.
There's a beautiful moment where he realizes, I forget exactly, I think it's at the very beginning when she's asking, where'd you get this idea from? Who told you? And he calls Marjorie Lady Marjorie because he understands already that he better not call Marjorie Queen while his mother's around, which is astonishing, considering how, well, actually it shouldn't be because kids are actually so much hipper than we give them credit for.
It's true.
But I have to admit that I was really surprised that he understood this already, because I do the same thing a lot of us do, which is just underestimate kids, even though I fucking know better. But yeah. So he already understands that he has to play his mother carefully when it comes to Marjorie, which is really sad that a little kid has to even think about that kind of thing. But it's, it is not uncommon. I think all of us have experience in some way or another to different extremes of understanding how you have to manage the emotions of the adults in your life, whether it's how you behave when you first come home from school or when they first come home from work or how they are in front of their, you know what I mean? Like you start to understand, mom or dad is doing this thing, so I better do this other thing, I better not do that thing or whatever.
There's a moment later on where Cersei is talking to Loras and he calls his sister the queen and she thinks he just calls her that to spite me. And I'm like, he calls her that because that's what the fuck she is.
Right?
Cersei.
Like that's what everybody should be calling her.
Jesus.
There's there's a bit where Tommen is like learning how to joust, and it's like he's so excited and proud of himself. It's like the best day ever. And Cersei happens upon the scene. It feels very much like accident, like she wasn't invited to this thing. It's just something that's happening. And she gets so mad. And she ends up saying something about how Tommen is going to be a fine jouster just like his father. And I read that line and I was like, oh girl, what are you doing?
Yo, she steps right into that. That was real embarrassing.
And then like a second later she realizes what she did. I wasn't even sure if we were going to get that, right? Like if we were going to actually stop and have a moment to appreciate what she just said. I wasn't sure, like are we going to escape by this or not? But no. Like, because sometimes with Cersei, she says shit and doesn't hear herself. And there's no, like, moment in her brain where she's like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, we as readers are like, oh, girl, what? But she doesn't go, oh, girl, what? But this moment, she was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, when Marjorie asks, like, oh, what tourneys has he won? She starts to flush, which we don't hear about from Cersei often at all.
Unless she's drinking.
Exactly. There's a couple of other things I wanted to mention because, like, Cersei, when Tommen's talking back to her, she threatens to get a whipping boy and beat him. And it's just such a, like, Tommen is such a sensitive kid that I bet hurting this other child is worse for him, like, emotionally in some ways than it would be if they had just hit him himself.
It's
because
interesting.
I feel like he is so empathetic, When
I read that, I had two reactions. One, I was really startled because even though this is not a new concept, it's something that I forget about. It's so quite frankly, it's just so disgusting. And it's difficult for me to wrap my brain around. Like, how is that punishment? And the first thing I thought, because the way she says it, she says that, she threatens to do that. And then there's a sentence that's not really any, it's like to the reader where it just sort of reminds us who Pate was and that he's Tommen's whipping boy and he had been Joffrey's as well. And my immediate thought was, oh my God, if Joffrey had a whipping boy, he would act up just to get the boy whipped because he was so sadistic. Yep. And my brain went like, how does Joffrey having a whipping boy come anywhere close to being punishment for Joffrey? He would have enjoyed every fucking second of that.
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean,
I guess you can't. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember, you guys, if when this concept of whipping boy was first introduced in the books, how much time was spent explaining it, or if we, I don't have any memory of any of that. But I don't remember what the reason is. Like, is it that it's just customary for highborn families? Is it because did Joffrey get a whipping boy only after he was king because you can't beat a king, or did they have them as children? Because I just don't remember what the construct is around this.
I'm
So-
assuming it's because you can't beat the king.
So they wouldn't have had whipping boys just as children. They would have gotten them once they were king.
I don't know. If they're children, they're still princes. So they may still. You get some protections even as a prince. So I'm not totally sure. I do want to mention Austin's Info Corner. Woo! He mentions that there is very little contemporary historical evidence for whipping boys actually existing.
Oh, that's good.
We do have records of medieval princes being whipped as punishment. So this is a thing here, but whether it's a real thing, who can say?
I mean, it's a very common expression, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Maybe I'll spend some time Googling, looking into that if I remember. I probably won't.
I don't think you should.
I
I feel
probably
like that's not a
shouldn't.
way to spend your spare time. I'm just going to make it a statement.
I'll just hopefully I'll forget about it. Because if I remember, I'll do it. I'm just so fucking, and, I'm just like always curious about everything. I cannot help myself. I be Googling the dumbest shit, y'all. I really do. I cannot. It is a sickness. I'm just curious. I am. I'm just always like, oh, I wonder what that is. Oh, what does that mean? I'm like a toddler with somebody shaking a handful of keys at me, So
there's also a couple of like pieces of news that she gets.
Yeah, towards the end when she sees Qyburn, but she has a whole like day at council too, that she is just the burden of ruling is so tedious. The Queen Regent thinks to herself as she, has been wanting this. This is the very thing she's wanted forever. And now that she has it, I also love the detail that she can't sit in the chair, which I don't know if I realized that or not.
Because that was like Tommen wants to sit up there behind her. And one, that's just going to undermine her whole vibe. But two, she's like, you're going to be fidgeting because you're a child, and it's going to really like not look good. And I was like, I kind of see that actually.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if I'm Cersei, I don't want an 8-year-old behind me sitting in the seat of power. But I don't know. And you know what it is? I can't remember what the show did around this or not. I know that there were moments where she sat on that throne. Well, maybe not. Wasn't she sitting in the throne in the episode where Tywin comes at after the Battle of Blackwater, where she's going to like poison her and the kids, and then her father comes to the throne doors?
That sounds familiar.
But I know that there was
really
a scene,
recall.
but I can't say exactly what she was sitting in. She may have not been in the throne itself. But anyway,
the show did not care about that sort of propriety type thing. Like they did whatever was dramatic. So she would probably have sat in the throne on the show. I don't think they would have cared about that being like not there being a rule around it,
Yeah. But I love that little tidbit of being like, oh, that shit is like, yeah, nobody can just sit there. I feel like after when she's ruling for Tommen, I feel like we see her in a chair as well later on in the show. But anywho, in this world, in the books, you don't do that. So she has this little cushiony chair with all these pillows like right at the foot of the throne. And we have her like dealing with her council members. This way she talks about Lord Waters too. Like she wants it real bad, y'all. She wants it so bad.
It's so frustrating too because Pycelle is piping up. She's letting Orain get his way on fucking everything. And he is apparently, he's building these Drummonds and he wants to give them to captains that are young and fresh. And she is like, yeah, well, the other captains that Pycelle is advocating for, who have proven their loyalty and everything, they should have gone down with their ship.
Yeah, that's her reasoning for not entrusting these seasoned people who survived this battle is because if they were really serious about that life, they would have died.
Which is just honestly so fucking Cersei. That is just so deeply on brand for her.
It is a weird way to look at that. I have to agree.
And the thing is, if you're giving all of these ships to these fresh-faced new hot men, they don't care about you, Cersei. They're going to be loyal to the guy they feel got them the job, you know? And she thinks like, well, he got it because I did it. That's not how that tends to work, though. You know, it's like Daemon with getting the fucking City Watch. Like, they were very loyal to him in a way that it's not that they were disloyal to the king, but these were
they were
his
Daemon's men. Yeah.
And I just feel like this seems like you're giving him toys to play with. You're not creating, I'm so sorry, everybody, this dog. You are not creating a strong, loyal force for the realm. You know?
Right.
It's just I just think he's short-sighted.
And yeah, she doesn't seem to, again, like her inability to think about the long game, you know? She's very like, what is right in front of my face? That's the thing that I'm going to be thinking about and making my decisions based on. And then I will deal with whatever tomorrow, because it will be a huge surprise to me tomorrow, because I just never saw it fucking coming. Even though everything I needed to know was right there in front of me, I'm still going to be super surprised.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And we find out that Pycelle has just been, in her estimation, really, really uncooperative as of late. She calls him querulous and just like he's just, you know, being a pain in my ass every time I turn around. And we also get news that Davos has been beheaded, according to some news that comes from, I think it's Pycelle who brings this news. So guys and friends, I am trying to remember the last we saw of Davos. Right? I don't think I believe any of this.
Okay.
About his head, about his hands, and his very shortened fingers, which I feel like all of that would be very easy to fake.
Agree.
All you got to do is stick a rotted head and throw an onion in his mouth and just tell everybody, this is Davos. Look, he's missing a finger.
Cut one of the fingers off.
Right?
Done. Yeah.
So I'm being honest by saying I can't exactly remember where we left Davos. So I, you know, want you guys to know that my estimation that this is all bullshit is because I just think this is all bullshit, not because I can remember anything about what's going on. I was really hoping that we would get a Davos chapter next, quite frankly, or something, you know.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting a Brienne chapter, which I wasn't mad about, but I was like kind of like, oh shit, yeah. What is going on with Davos? This doesn't sound right.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah. But she takes this news and, you know, she does, like, she's like, are we sure it's him? And they're like, yeah, we're sure. And I guess that's really all you can go on these days. So she takes this news as if it's, you know, it's really happened. And is thinking to herself, you know, okay, this is all working out how I'd like. I've got the Boltons over here doing this thing. And I've got fucking Tyrell is down there doing this other thing. Yeah, this is all shaping up very nicely for me. And she also has to finally have this meeting with this guy from Bravos because, you know, remember, they owe the bank a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And this man is here to find out about where are the monies. We are owed some monies. You haven't sent us any of the monies. Where are the monies at?
And her response is, the monies are where they need to be.
Right.
Which is not with you. Please leave us alone. Goodbye.
And I don't understand fully what the consequences of this will be.
Neither does Cersei.
But I am fairly certain there will be consequences. Because, yeah, she just basically shuts him down and just like, we'll worry about this debt when this war is over. And when the guy tries to invoke, like, well, Robert said, blah, 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 she's like, well, Robert's fucking dead. So I don't know what else to fucking tell you. And she ends the meeting. And I'm just like, this is one of those things, Cersei, that I would have wanted you. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I would have wanted you to think about this a little bit differently. I'm not exactly sure what the solution should have been, but it wasn't this. But I don't know, y'all. I don't know. And also I want to mention, so like the owing the Iron Bank is a huge deal, but I don't remember the particulars and the specifics of how the Iron Bank functions in this world, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm bringing a lot of my own contemporary ideas about what it's like to owe a bank money.
That's fair.
To this, right? So I don't know if the Iron Banks, like, I don't know if their answer to this is force, or is it like spreading the word that you don't have no money to pay nobody nothing, because that could be just as damaging.
That's true.
You know, you're going around, you know, getting people up to your side and raise their banners for you, and you know, and then you're promising titles and lordships and keeps to whomever, and then if people find out you don't have any money to back up any of this, you know, that could be very, very damaging.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure what the comeuppance looks like from the Iron Bank, but either way, I feel like these are not people you want to dismiss so lightly and cavalierly. That
Yep.
doesn't feel right.
That's correct.
I don't like it.
Right.
I won't be saying it again.
Okay.
I don't care for it.
I have been listening to Pride and Prejudice on audiobook lately, and there are some ways that things are said, and it's technically correct, and I'm like, no, don't say it like that. Like, and a lot of it's just, we're used to contractions, like, oh, he really likes it there, doesn't he? Oh, he really enjoys it there, does not he? Yeah, does not he? I don't like it. Anyway.
No, that's not right.
Cavalierly is correct, though.
Does not he? Does he not? Yeah, I guess does he not would be wrong, because that's ending with a preposition. So it would be does not he. Yeah. Oh, no.
Right? Doesn't that just make you, like,
no.
Ugh, it's twitchy.
No. Nah. So, oh my God, this sentence. It was hard work to rule a kingdom, much less 7 of them. I don't know, y'all. She's so funny to me. So finally she leaves the meeting with the Bravosi, and her and one of the Kettle Blacks are making their way back to her chambers, I think. And this gives her an opportunity to check in on her other master plan, right? Mm-hmm. Which is sending one of the other Kettle Blacks out to seduce Marjorie. And she wants to know, how is that going? And it is not going well. And it turns out that it is not because this Kettle Black isn't comely. And Marjorie can't seem to keep her hands off of him, which I feel like was a little sus. Like, I mean, we find out that she touched his scar. She moves his hair out of his face. So I don't know. Maybe there is something there. But
if it were sus, would you think that she's like just teasing him, like toying with him?
When I say sus, I mean like, I'm wondering if this is Osmond. No, this is Is it Osmond that she's with? She's with Osmond.
She's with Osmond, yeah.
And the one that's there is
Osney,
right?
Yeah.
So when I say sus, I mean I'm wondering if Osmond's the way he's framing Marjorie's behavior, if he's embellishing.
Ah, gotcha.
Right? I don't know if he is taking 1 or 2 instances and making more of it than it really is, or if Marjorie is really behaving this way. Then the second question would be, if Marjorie is really behaving this way, what is she doing, right? I hadn't really thought about that, because my focus was on, I wonder if he's just making more of this than is actually happening over there, because he doesn't want to anger Cersei.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But really what the obstacle, according to Osmond, is they're never alone.
Right.
Which I feel like, of course.
Yeah, that's like the way you handle a queen.
Like, and why would Cersei should know this. Of all people, She should know this.
Mhm.
So I think when I thought about, I don't want to spend too much time digging in the weeds on this, but as he's telling Cersei this, and it's coming, like I joked about earlier, it's like, oh my God, what a shocking surprise. When you feel like this is something she should have been keenly aware of. This has been her lived experience for the last like 15 years or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So it's like it's another moment of Cersei just not thinking her
I have
plan all the way
two,
through.
like, theories about various parts of this.
So before, I just want to mention.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. When I thought that, my next thought was, well, but Cersei has also spent the entirety of her marriage fucking whoever she felt like fucking.
Yeah.
So she has always made it a priority. She has figured out ways to be alone with the people that she wants to fuck.
Mhm.
And I think she just sort of jumped and thought that would be the same thing that Marjorie would do.
Mhm.
Right? Like she assumed that Marjorie, once this kettle black that Marjorie is crushing on, according to Cersei, is in her vicinity, Marjorie would then take the necessary steps to be alone with him, because that's what Cersei would have and has done.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then she's surprised that Marjorie is not actually doing that.
Yeah. I think too, Cersei was like, you know, the way that she was fucking around at first, it was with her brother, and nobody suspected anything at the time. So it's easy to be alone with your brother. That's not considered alone. And he's also like one of the King's Guard. So that is another like layer with the fact that he's her brother,
Mm-hmm.
for people to not really think anything of it. And also, she had Robert as a husband who was very unconscious of things.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was like watching her and suspecting her of anything to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie is very aware that she is surrounded by the Queen's people. And when I say the Queen, I'm talking about Cersei, my bad. But she's surrounded by Cersei's people who will be looking for any excuse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that she's like just a lot more conscious, because Cersei has never been in this particular position. And even when she was, she's not somebody who cares about propriety very much. You know, she just doesn't. Like, she always has seen herself as part of such a powerful family that who's going to check her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that Marjorie moves the same way. And then I think Marjorie is fucking with Osney. I think that she has a sense of what they're trying to trick her into doing. And she is thinking it's funny. And it's just like, you know, I'm just going to really like lean into this in such a way. And because I think that Cersei tells like what her plot is for trying to like get Marjorie in bed with Osney to Lady Taena.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
So my suspicion is that Taena just tells Marjorie. Like, there's no reason for Cersei to trust Taena the way that she does. And I just really don't think she's that trustworthy. And I think that she told Marjorie, and Marjorie is having a good time, like, getting this guy thinking that he's on the right track when she has no intention of anything, you know?
I like the idea of she already knows what the deal is, and she's just playing around with everybody. I have to say, I don't feel like I don't feel like I have a great idea of who Marjorie is in these books.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right, kind of like conflating her character in the show in some ways with just like her sort of sauciness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I really don't know if that's who this Marjorie is, because we never hear about her from her we just get everybody else's sort of perception of her.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much credit to give her, quite frankly. But I really love the idea that that's what's happening, because that's really funny.
I just feel like Cersei is so unsubtle. I have to imagine a lot of what she thinks is clever plotting, everybody around her can see her very clumsy attempts and know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
If not Marjorie, at least the Queen of Thorns. Although I don't know if she's still there. She may have left by now.
I feel like she's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they told us that they had departed already. So yeah, there's a what is it? What is this piece here? Oh, but they're still talking about not being able to get her alone, and he mentions that there's always men guarding her, and we find out that Marjorie has a weakness. It's presented as a weakness for singers and jugglers and whatnot, and I feel like we get Cersei sort of like, well, maybe there's something that can be done about that. Maybe that's something that can be exploited. Oh God. Then we have the unfortunate thoughts about somebody named Jalavar Zoe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, apparently he's been like petitioning since Robert was alive for help, like reclaiming his homeland.
And Robert has just been every year being like, we'll do it next year.
Yeah,
next
just
year never
stringing
comes.
him along.
And we find out that this guy has been teaching Marjorie and her cohort some of his language. She calls Marjorie a horse that speaks the summer tongue would make a great sensation, the queen said dryly, because they've been calling Marjorie the filly.
Yeah.
Just like
he'll soon be able to mount her.
Oh my God. And there's a moment where she thinks to herself about the guy she's with, which is Osmond Black. What is it?
Kettle Black.
God damn it. He's talking to her, and he's promising to do like everything she commands, and she thinks he's eager for that ride. Don't think he ain't, is what he's telling Cersei. And then Cersei thinks to herself, it is me he's eager for. All he wants of Marjorie is the lordship between her legs. And I just, how do you think it's different, man?
Babe.
What do you think?
There's also a moment where she's getting dressed and thinking about how all the washerwomen have like shrunk her
Did you
gowns.
peep that? Right? And then like nothing else happens, but that's supposed to be telling us something, right?
Definitely. She is drinking a lot more and gaining weight. And I think that she's losing some of her beauty, and she doesn't see it and understand that shift in power to Marjorie as well.
I couldn't remember the last time she fucked somebody, and for a split second I was like, is she pregnant?
Oh shit.
So I don't know.
But yeah, that felt like there's just at least a very like there's a change going on with her.
There's absolutely a body change. Yeah. I just didn't know which it was. Like I know, like we've been told that she's drinking a lot, and that can definitely make you gain weight. But I wasn't sure if it was because it's such a quick line, and there's no like she doesn't stop to think about it whatsoever. Yeah. She, in the way the retelling is basically, these fucking irresponsible women have, they shrank my best fits.
And I think Taina is the one who's like, just don't, because she wants to like beat them or something.
Oh yeah. She wants to punish them in a pretty like fucking barbaric way, considering the offense, right? And then her friend Taina is just like, well, it's kind of important for the small folk to like you. Yeah. And you don't want like tales of how cruel of a mistress you are circulating. So it'll be better if you just like take the cost out of their wages.
Which I'm sure each of those dresses is more than these women make in 2 years.
Probably, right? So like and there's no like real detail on that. But I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, so they're working for free for the next year. Basically.
I'm wondering if Taina covered it. There's like a feeling for me of Taina being a little protective of these servants and just being like, hey, why don't you just, and then like slyly giving them some money and being like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, right. That's the funny thing though, is because like, yeah, because it's not that they would give Cersei money to repay her. She would just not pay them. So then, yeah, Taina would have to slip them a little something on the side to make up for it. I hadn't really thought about how that would work, but yeah.
I have no reason to give Taina that credit. It's just the fact that she stood up for them at all that makes me think that it's not just about Cersei's image.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered, like, I really did fall for not fall for, but I didn't take any time to think more deeply about why she would suggest that. I was just kind of like, yeah, if you want to try to rehabilitate your image, you're going to want to limit the amount of awful stories that are floating around about you. And there's already a lot of awful stories out there floating around you, which we find out later because of this fucking puppet show.
This puppet show is really something.
So yeah, then we have the bit where she's, finds them teaching Tommen how to joust, and he's practicing, and he's just so, pleased about everything. And she gets into a little back and forth with Loras, who believes he should be the one to train Tommen, right? He should be the one to train him in jousting and self-defense and all that shit. And Cersei is not here for it. And she's just lying. She's like, he is your king, not your squire. And I'm like, you know what? It's kind of true, though.
That is somewhat true.
It's kind of true. But also, it forces Cersei to be like, we'll have, because they don't have a master of arms. Because that's who she's like, that's whose job it is. And Loras is like, well, we don't have one. So now Cersei has to be like, as a matter of fact, I'm planning on picking someone any day now. She's got
how convenient,
right? She's got nobody in mind. There's nobody. She hasn't even fucking thought about this.
Eventually, she's like, maybe somebody from Dorne, and I'm like, oh my god, word.
Like, I just don't know. I don't know. I just don't know, you guys. I don't know what her brain is doing. Because right now, I mean, I know she thinks that she's got everything with Dorne squashed. Has she sent the head of Clegane yet, who I still don't believe is really Clegane, but we were told that he died, right? So she was going to send proof. Did she actually do that?
I don't know.
So I don't know if that head went out in the mail or not, but the idea that she thinks she's got all of them satisfied because she's given them this head, and so now I'm just gonna pluck somebody from Dorne and insert them into like the most vulnerable part of my whole thing, right? My child son who's king needs to be taught up. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's not a mentor. What is the opposite of a squire? I guess a knight, but that's not what I'm going for either. But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Somebody to train him to be his, whatever the word I'm grasping for.
Teacher, professor,
something in that vein, but a little bit more violent. But you know what I mean? But so she's gonna pluck somebody from this populace that is actually very deeply unhappy with the crown right now, and just pluck one of them and drop him down into her court with the responsibility to raise her son in that particular way. And this doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. But I mean, I'm not the Queen Regent. I don't really know. But I'm just saying from the outside, maybe not the best idea.
I don't know. That sounds really paranoid on your part, John. I feel like you're just overthinking things, which, Cersei would never.
Oh my God. So after the jousting thing and the back and forth with Loras and Marjorie, and the fucking throws that line out there about how Tom is going to be like his father. And that really embarrassing paragraph that follows, which was hard to fucking read.
Yeah.
She tries to cover it, talking about Robert won a tourney at the Trident. And then
but anyway, don't look it up. Okay.
Right? Has to change the subject real quick. So she pulls Loras out, gives him a little talking to about how, it's not his place. And that's where she comes up with the idea of bringing somebody from Dorne. And then finally she makes it home. And this is where Qyburn is. And then he has his news to drop, which she's not in the mood for. She's so short-tempered and impatient at this point because she has had a very long day. And she only wants one news. She doesn't say it, But we all know she only wants one piece of news. She wants to know that Tyrion has been found and that his head is also in the mail.
Yeah.
And Qyburn doesn't have any of that news. And so she's really not interested in anything that he's dropping. But his tidbits are that they have offered terms and lies to end the war between the Tyroshi, and that without the Golden Company, Mir was like, we can't win this war. Cersei is just like, this does not have anything to do with me. I could give a fuck. And he starts to talk about a slave revolt in Astapor has spread to Marine, and that there's a lot of talk about dragons. And once again, people are just like, poo-poo, dragons, get out of here with that nonsense. Mm-hmm. How many times does someone have to, I get it, right? This is a world where people have forgotten that magic is a real thing. And magic is re-entering this universe in very strange and extreme ways, and also in places that a lot of our characters aren't at yet, right? So we got White Walkers and the others way up north, and we got Dany and the dragons way out to the east. So everything feels very like, oh, those are just tales, you know? But at some point, you start hearing the same tale over and over and over again. And does it become reasonable? How long is it reasonable to completely discount it? And I'm not being judgmental here, because I'm trying to imagine, like, how often do I have to hear a rumor on the internet before I start going, you know what? There might be something to that. You know?
She says something like, it's harpies you're thinking of.
Yeah, right?
Which was genuinely like,
yep.
What?
Yep.
That's not even, what are you?
Yep.
Okay.
And then it says she remembered that from somewhere. Like, her source isn't even that solid. It's just she picked up that tidbit at some point in her life. She can't remember exactly where.
This is like me reading a screenshot from Tumblr.
Yeah.
Being like, well, you know, I heard a thing. Sources, please. Citation needed.
And then her response to the slave revolt is basically, let them revolt, then we don't give a fuck. We don't have slaves here. And then his last bit of some other news is that Prince Doran has imprisoned some people, one namely Daemon Sand, because he demanded that Prince Oberyn's daughters be set free. Cersei doesn't seem particularly interested in this news either. And she also doesn't say, and is there any news of my daughter? Like, how's my daughter doing over there?
No.
Since you're bringing me news from Dorne, there's not even a drop of that. And I don't know what to make of that. Like,
yeah, the whole because they demanded the daughter, like, there's a whole part of that story that's not made its way out. So that's interesting. Titan controlled.
Mm-hmm. And that there's some news about some people at Eastermont. Somebody got married. I'm not really sure who these people are supposed to be to me, if anything.
Not sure
but
either.
What it really does is prompts a memory of Cersei's, of being at this place where this news is coming from, which is a place called Greenstone.
Mm-hmm.
And she is reminded that Robert took her there once to return like a courtesy, and it was such a crappy place to be that her and Jamie called it green shit. And she, in her memory, she's pretty sure this is the night she first got pregnant with Joffrey.
Yeah.
Also, Robert, there was some woman there that Cersei thought was like, I believe the phrase is a chunky little widow with breasts as big as melons. And Robert ends up.
I only
her.
hope to be described in such a way at some point in my life.
Right.
not saying I hope Owen dies. I just realized it sounds like I'm like, oh, I can't wait to be a widow. That's not what I mean. Just chunky with breasts as big as melons. I'm good with that. And Jamie asks her, do you want me to kill him, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, nah, just fuck me.
Yeah, she says, I want him horned.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I don't know what I didn't. I have no idea.
That's what they call it when somebody is cuckolded.
Oh,
And I don't get what that comes from. I'm sure somebody out there can educate me. I'm not going to look it up right now. But yeah, she gave him horns means she fucked around on him.
Okay, gotcha. I got the context, but I just wasn't familiar with the expression. Interesting. I kind of like it. I do. I kind of like it. Interesting. I might Google that later on too.
Oh boy.
Yeah, my whole search history about to be fucked up. Algorithm, the ads I'm gonna get on Facebook, y'all. Whew.
Oh man. You're gonna start to get some of that weird like fiction I'm gonna Google whipping boy and horned, and my shit's gonna be all fucked up. Oh no.
But maybe for the better. We'll see.
Well, I started when I was like covering Twilight. I got so much wolf pack smut on my feed, and it was always accompanied by either stolen fan art or actual like stills from TV shows. A lot of times it was from Vikings. But yeah, it was just relentless. I would take screenshots sometimes because it was like, it felt like AI. Like some of it just was either put together so poorly that it felt like it was artificial, or it had been translated badly.
Right.
But yeah, some of them were really funny.
I read the other day that there's this giant, you guys probably know it, some sort of very popular fan fiction like website.
Oh yes, they got like,
and did you see that shit?
Rashawn, Candace was talking to me about it.
Oh right, that's her jam, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they got fucking attacked and by some like claiming to be religious, right sort of. I forget who it was. But some religious.
I feel like it
group.
was Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it was like
where they were from.
Yeah, like some sort of Islamist kind of. This is smut and degenerates read it, and we're gonna take you down. But scary that that can be done.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So she's still talking to Qyburn, and he's got a last little bit of news. This was deeply unsettling. So, two things. We get the puppet show, but the thing that was upsetting to me was he also, we'll just talk about the puppet show first because that leads into his request. He tells her that there's a puppet show going on in town, and it is about lions. Mm-hmm. This is so subtle, you guys. I can't believe. Like, who would put this together?
This feels really irresponsible.
Right? Mm-hmm. Who no one is going to know who they're talking about, right? This is like, it's so subtle. They have fucking puppet lions, and they're greedy and arrogant, and they devour their own subjects, and then finally a noble stag makes an objection, and the lions eat him as well, and then at the end, a dragon hatches and devours all the lions. So again, tales of dragons are making the rounds enough that it is entering the popular entertainment of the day.
Yes.
Cersei decides that we need to see who's enjoying this show. If it's anybody of substance, is the way she phrases it. She wants their names. And the men who are of substance are going to be fined basically half their net worth, which is a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And she kind of thinks she's being very clever here because, we need money anyway. So this will be a good way to like get some additional funds. And then the poor people will lose an eye, and the puppeteers themselves are going to get the axe. And then Qyburn asks, can he have one or two of the puppeteers? Mm-hmm. Because a woman especially would be helpful in his time of need. And she says, I already gave you Sinel, which is her handmaiden that we found out was spying.
Right.
Y'all, he is into some shit. He is into some shit that makes even Cersei be like, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
I am choosing not to think about it. And
the wording he gives is Sanel is quite exhausted.
Yeah. Cersei did not like to think about that. And she has a memory. The cells were bitter cold, even the torches shivered, and that foul thing screaming in the darkness. So I'm like, that's Clegane, right? That motherfucker is not dead. She ain't sending that head nowhere. He is still down there. Whatever Qyburn is trying to build, whatever's happening down there. And I don't want to know if the women are there to like keep the Clegane thing from like going on an entire rampage. Like, does he give it women? I'm going to call Clegane an it at this point because I don't even think it's human at this point. Does he give it women to toy with to keep it busy or what? But
I was thinking of it more of like a reward system.
I mean, that is also unpleasant.
Oh yeah. No, there's no scenario that isn't awful in this. But yeah. I don't know why, and but I keep thinking about it like he's training a dog or something.
I mean, it seems fair enough. I don't know. Like the book, we don't have any idea of what the fuck is really happening down there. So I'm being informed also by what little the show did with this,
Sure.
So if it is some sort of like mindless thing that Qyburn has created down there, then yeah, it would need to be trained, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much of whatever Clegane was as a man is left behind, because also like if this thing is like on the show, what they did was he was still as strong as he had ever been, still as menacing, still as dangerous, but also much more obedient than he had been when he was fully man.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how much training this thing requires, but a reward system would track, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just awful to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, bleh. But so then Qyburn leaves and she's starting to get ready for her very important dinner, and Jaime brings Tommen to see her while she's bathing. And I guess.
Which part? Which part are you saying you guess?
Like, I guess Tommen is the king. Tommen tells Jaime, I want to go talk to my mother and I want to go talk to her right now. I guess as the king, you have to be like, I bet, let's go see your mother right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I am struggling as a reader to get a good handle on when the king's word is a command and when the king's word is the word of an 8-year-old boy,
I think it depends who he's talking to. And Jaime is really cranky with his sister and going to give him what he wants just to be annoying to Cersei.
This is what it feels like, right? This is exactly what it felt like to me as well. So they come and they basically interrupt her bath. And Tommen is here because he has decided, I'm going back for jousting tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I want my fucking horse back.
If only he had said that.
Right?
That'd be amazing.
And she has to fight with her child here. Mm-hmm. He wants to. She says no. He tries to say that not only am I not going to wait, not only am I going to do it tomorrow, but you are not going to decide who is going to be my master at arms because I want Loras. And Cersei is accusing, well, she says to Tommen right out, your wife is putting all this bullshit in your head. And really overstating how good Loras is. He's not even that fucking good. And like Osmond Kettleblack is 3 times the knight that Loras is, which we all know is nonsense, right?
Fucking Jaime is over in the corner just going...
Like,
she's so mad at him.
So then she's like, and I'm not only am I going to get you a new master's arm, but he's going to come from Dorne, and the Dornish are the finest jousters in the whole realm. And Tommen is like, that is nonsense, and I don't want a Dornishman. I want Loras. And he tries to say, I command it. And at this point, Jaime just laughs right out loud in front of everybody. And Cersei is so angry.
Yeah.
Because Jaime is in sort of encouraging this behavior. She says he is no help at all. He thinks this is funny. And she threatens Tommen with sending for Pate and reminding Tommen that you do not command me. I'm your mother. And once again, we have Marjorie coming out of Thomas's mouth, but I am the king. Everyone has to do what I say. Jaime is still laughing in the corner. And
fucking Jaime, I swear to God.
And she ends up just talking to Tommen as her son. And he's scared to come to her. And she's just like, yes, you're king, but you are still a little boy. And until you come of age, I'm in charge. You're going to learn to fight, I promise you, but it's not going to be Loras because he's a knight of the King's Guard and they have more important duties to do. Isn't that right, Lord Commander? She tries to get Jaime to behave. And the best Jaime can do is very important duties. Riding around the city walls, for instance. At this point, poor Tommen is like on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
And the best he's like, well, can I at least have a kitten? And Cersei is like, maybe, if you don't say anything else about this jousting bullshit.
But then Marjorie goes behind her back and gives him one.
Yeah, at the end of this, he ends up having like 3 fucking cats. And Tommen leaves, and his last thing is like, well, when I am king, I'm going to fucking outlaw beats. And then he leaves the room.
Oh, that's so good.
And so when Tommen leaves, the first thing Jaime says to her is, I was wondering, are you drunk or merely stupid?
I forgot that he gets this like in her face.
Yeah, he's all up in that.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I have been searching the city walls. I've searched every fucking inch of every goddamn gate. And everything is as strong as it's ever been. This one gate needs to be replaced or whatever, but our friends are inside the walls and you have me fucking outside. Mm-hmm. I should be inside protecting you and our family and all that. And he also tells her it's not going to be easy finding someone better than Loras. And
she really hates anybody admitting that the Tyrells have anything good going for them.
Yeah, absolutely. She will not suffer it at all. And she can't. And the thing is, too, that's so funny about this is that it is understood by practically everyone how good Loras is.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it would be fine. I mean, I guess she can't say it publicly, but like at least to Jaime, you can admit how good he is. Yeah. And just be like, but I don't want him that close to my fucking son. But she can't even do that.
She does eventually say, I don't want him near Tommen, but she says, like, I know what he is in such a way that I'm just like, well, that's just.
Yeah, that's barely acknowledging how good he is. That's not like, it's.
Oh, I felt like that was, I know what he is, that he's gay, and I don't want him near Tommen.
Yeah, because, well, okay, yeah. I thought about that too.
You didn't want it to be what it was?
Yeah, kind of. Well, because Jaime counters back to that and is like, he knows his duties, he knows his job, and there's no better Lance. And she cuts him off again and says, well, you were better before you lost your hand. And then she names all these other people that was better than Loras. They're all dead or gone, by the way.
There's no relevance whatsoever.
Yeah. But like, so even though like she's still not giving any real credit to how good Loras is. in this respect. She just can't bring herself to do it. And then I think finally Jamie leaves, and we get a memory of her and Rhaegar.
Yeah, what did you think about this?
This was
I don't feel like we knew exactly how heart set she was on Rhaegar.
No, I don't think we did at all. Like, I also this reveal too that her father had told her when she was quite young that she would marry Rhaegar and be queen, and that he had her keep it a secret. No one was supposed to know. So she had this secret with her father that made her feel like they were, in league, in cahoots, and that they had like something special, like a bond between the two of them. They shared the secret. And also we get this memory of Rhaegar coming to Casterly Rock. It's this big tournament, and this is going to be the day it's announced to the world that they're going to be engaged, and how excited she was and how beautiful she had to look. And then it doesn't happen. And her aunt has to tell her that the reason it doesn't happen is because King Aerys basically says to Tywin's face, you're great and all, but you're a servant. And a king doesn't fucking marry his heir to his fucking servant's kid. Like, come on. You thought she was on my level? That is some really harsh shit to hear.
That sounds like the kind of shit Cersei would say to somebody, to be honest.
It really does. I mean, it's the kind of shit Tywin would have said to somebody. But it being said to him never occurred to him. It just never occurred to him. It never occurred to Tywin that the king would not think his family was worthy. And
I don't think I agree with you that it's the kind of thing Tywin would have said.
You don't think so?
Because he was Hand at this point, right? And I think he would know better than to spit in the face of like his closest advisor.
Who are you talking about? You
just said Tywin would say that to somebody.
Yeah, when you say he wouldn't say it to his closest advisor, who?
Because Aerys said it to Tywin, who was his hand at the time, right?
Right. Okay.
So I am saying I don't think Tywin would have done anything like that because he understands like how much. I want to say, what's the opposite of goodwill? Bad will? Is that anything?
Malice?
I guess. But how much like
malevolence?
I don't know. Anonymity? No, not anonymity. What's the other one?
Animosity?
That's the one. Thank you. Maybe. But yeah, I feel like I don't know that Tywin would have been so indelicate. It would have been something he may have thought to himself, but I don't see him saying it and being so insulting.
I do. I feel like if someone was someone that Tywin, had to work with, on a council or whatever the circumstance were, and he is, able to do that, but also very mindful of station. And if he was dealing with someone who his estimation was they're a little bit beneath me because I'm a fucking Lannister and you're just the insert name of a house of whoever, not even that they're necessarily that much lower in the real world. I just mean lower in Tywin's estimation. He would be like, yeah, no, we work together, but I wouldn't marry one of my kids to one of y'all. Come on now. Be real, be for real.
I don't know. That feels like shooting yourself in the foot in a way that doesn't seem like him to me. Like, I think he would be very conscious of the station, but I don't think he would say it in so many words. He would do what he needs to do to keep them from knowing that's how he felt, because he was pretty diplomatic a lot of the time. Like, as much as he was really harsh with words when we would be around him, so much of the conversations that we saw were with his children, who he ruled over, so he saw it. And he didn't have to mince words with them. But I feel like he was extremely conscious of keeping friends and keeping them close. And you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't agree with that, but I'll be interested to hear what people think in the comments later.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very like hypothetical sort of thing. So I do want to know, what do people think?
Oh, and also this thing that Cersei has where when she finds out, like, that the marriage wasn't agreed upon. And then she has this thing where, like, well, what if we had been married, I would have had his kids instead of Robert's and also Jamie's.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's interesting. She's like, I definitely would cheat on Robert with Jamie, but she apparently is thinking she wouldn't have done that if she were married to Rhaegar.
Yeah. And she in the line about how she had never forgiven Robert for killing Rhaegar, I thought was really, really informative. I hadn't really thought about that before. I don't think it ever occurred to me. And if it had been mentioned, I forgot about it. That because it's the way she frames this memory is that she was really, really smitten with Rhaegar, like that she was in love with him. I'm saying she was in love with him in that way that you think you're in love with somebody that you don't really know,
like a
I
crush.
mean? Yeah. And
a celebrity crush.
It had been, yeah, basically kind of was. And she's remembering him mostly too as like playing this harp, and she's this line about his sad eyes, it's all very Sansa-ish, quite frankly.
Ooh.
It does. It has a little bit of Sansa.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, totally.
But just, yeah, this young, beautiful girl, like, imagining this prince that's supposed to be for her and living that. Like, she tells us she goes to see Maggie the Frog because she's so confident in her future that she's not afraid to go and see this, this ridiculous prophecy, because she's so confident that her future is already set kind of in stone, That's how sure she is that this is how her life is going to turn out. And then it doesn't. And she's basically told it doesn't happen because you're not good enough. And then she ends up marrying the man who kills the man that she thinks she's in love with for all these years. And then she has this throwaway line about does she call her the wolf queen, wolf girl?
Yeah, but, then Rhaegar would never have looked at the wolf girl.
Yeah. And then like that as well has got to be like an extra, because there was this thing, I don't think it was in the book, I think it's from the show, but there's this line they gave Cersei in the show about how devastating it was for her to sleep with Robert that first night and drunkenly calls her Lyanna.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if that's really in the book or not. But thinking about it, so you fall in love with this guy who's supposed to be a prince. That falls apart. You end up married to this other fucking guy who has murdered the man that you love, and also is in love with the woman that the man you loved fell in love with.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Like that's just got to really fucking sting.
Yeah, true.
Right? Yeah.
The wolf girl.
Yeah. And then they have the dinner, which we kind of started her chapter talking about the dinner with the Soakworths and how she ends up getting them to agree to have something happen to Bronn because he is like, building up arms and is going to be a danger to her, and she can't get a night's peace while he's, lurking around.
I am like not of the opinion that he's really like getting sellswords together to do anything to her, but I also think that he is definitely not somebody that would give a shit about who he's supposed to be loyal to. So it really, for me, it's like, well, that's not what's happening, but I guess you could kill Bronn, whatever.
I mean, and also like Bronn was Tyrion's man,
True. Yep.
So there is, it's not unreasonable for her to be suspicious of him. I don't know. My only question about this bit of the story is I don't know how much Cersei believes what she's saying, right? Like, I don't know if Cersei really does believe that he's like raising up sellswords to eventually, attack her. Because she also tries to suggest that Bronn might be hiding Tyrion, and to which point they were like, "Well, he's small, but we would have noticed him if he was around." But so I don't know how much of what she's telling them she honestly believes, and how much of it is just that Bronn is associated with Tyrion, and I don't want him around. Like, I don't like that he's living a life.
I think she does believe it, but she doesn't have to. Either way,
Yeah. But I'm curious. And it's really hard to tell because she's just so all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And she really believes something one instant and then believes something wholly different in the next instant. You know, there's a lot of whiplash in her period. There's a lot of whiplash. I was trying to think of a better way to end that sentence, but that's just the whole sentence.
I'm trying to see from Austin's Info Corner if there's anything that we forgot to talk about. Oh yeah, she hands over her maid. So now, yeah, we talked about pretty much everything here. Okay, all right. So let's go on to Brienne. Dun 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 dun. Brienne has another fucking encounter with fucking Tarly.
Yeah, he's just really odious. Every time he shows up, he's just less pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just when you think this guy can't be like any worse without, you know, being like an actual fucking guy who goes around killing babies and raping people.
Right.
But at one point he just says something like she's in need of a good hard raping to get her shit together. And I'm just like, I could have done without any of that.
Yeah.
I get that you're a terrible guy, and it's specifically terrible to Brienne in this particular sense too, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that the threats of rape hound Brienne as a character, but the women in general in this world, you know, it is something I still haven't gotten fully used to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe that is a testament to the writing. I'm not really sure. I waffle on this point. Sometimes I feel like the way that the threat is ever present and is almost like oppressive is like, oh, well, that's a sign that the books are really doing what the books should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are times where my reaction to it is like, okay, fucking enough. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I really do swing wildly back between the two. It feels like it is hounding Brienne in a way that is escalating. And I don't know if that's a reaction to the continual mention of it that I'm having as a reader, or if it is intentionally being written about in this way. Because Brienne is triggered all the time now.
Yeah.
Like every time I feel like we get in her chapter, she's thinking about being raped, or somebody is telling her that they want to rape her, or that they're going to rape her, or that she's going to get raped. Like it's fucking overpowering.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this chapter is a lot of that. Like at one point when they finally get to fucking sleep, you know, she can't even sleep through the night. She's waking up like multiple times a night feeling like Nimble Dick is out to get her. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So when they head back, Heil Hunt wants to bring the heads with them, which, considering the stories that Nimble Dick had been telling about, like the heads, I found really funny. And they are not enjoying the company of these heads, and eventually her and Pod start to ride ahead because the stench is so bad and there's so many flies and everything.
Yeah. There's like, I love that she's like, there's no tar because handling heads is so common in this world that we have a thing we do to keep them from rotting. We like fill them with tar or whatever the fuck. And that is just sort of a known practice. Like, oh, what do you do with heads? Oh, you tar them. What are we doing? What is this world? So that when he suggests bringing the heads with them, I feel like the response should have been, ew, no.
Right.
But the response is, oh, we can't. We don't have any tar on hands. And I don't know how I feel about that.
And there's a sort of interesting thing going on with Hunt in this chapter. He's like being better than she expects repeatedly, over and over again, in a way that I really don't know what to think. The first time that he surprises her is he does not take credit for taking down the Bloody Mummers. He completely lets her get the credit for it.
I love that she assumes he will take the credit.
Yeah. So yeah, he doesn't take the credit. And the thing that I really found noteworthy is that he gives Randall some lip. Randall Tarley is doing the whole like, well, you got your little play acting with your sword and now you should be happy so you can fucking become a woman again and go and put on a dress and shut the fuck up.
I loved it when Hunt gives Brienne the credit and tries to say, she was fast. And Tarley's like, well, the sword is fast.
Yeah. Here's when he mentions about how Clegane rides with Beric Dondarrion now. Which I'm like, what? And then Lady Stoneheart is mentioned here. And he says, do you really think you can find them if I can't find them? Well, I'll give you my leave. If you're fortunate, all you'll get are saddle sores. If not, perhaps Clegane will let you live after he and his pack are done raping you. And she just ignores it, which I could never.
You can crawl back to Tarth with some dog's bastard in your belly.
Yep.
Tells her. And you're right. She ignores that and she tries to continue on with the conversation as though he has not just said the most disgusting shit ever right to her fucking face. And she's like, if you would be so kind, can you at least tell me how many people he has riding with him? And he gives her a completely bullshit answer, 660 or 600. It depends on like who you ask. Nobody really knows. And then decides that the conversation is done and like turns his back on her and starts to walk away. And she starts to ask him, well, can we at least have your hospitality? And he says, I will not suffer you beneath my roof.
Yeah.
And this is when Hunt says something back. Like, basically, let me remind you, sir, it's not your fucking roof.
Yeah.
And that starts to seal the deal for Hunt.
I am very surprised by him suddenly being like, actually, giving her credit, doing this, and then like, just overall, it feels like he kind of put himself on the line a little bit here. And I think that it probably is that he saw her fight and sees like, oh, maybe we could pull this off after all. Like, I didn't think that you were a worthy fighter, but you were kind of badass and maybe this isn't an impossible. But there's also, he just doesn't like Tarly. Right?
Yeah, it feels like a mixture of like, he doesn't like or respect Tarly. There is like a little bit of being impressed with Brienne, and then what she assumes is his entire motivation later, but that he starts to think, maybe there's something in it, this quest, like maybe he can make out.
Yeah.
Because she ends up being like, oh, he's only in it for the money and the reward. I don't think that's 100% it. I think, that there's more to it than just that. Like a grudging respect for Brienne a little bit. And like you said, his just dislike of Tarly, who just seems like a very unlikable man. So I get that. The last thing Tarly tells her is that it's really hurtful. He says something about that he feels sorry for her father, that, some men are blessed with sons and some get daughters, but no man deserves to have whatever she is, which is just really, really, really. And she has to tell herself it doesn't matter. They can't hurt you. Words are just win. And she continues to be respectful to Tarly, as you command, my lord. But Tarly, like, turns and walks away before she can even get out the whole words.
I really want her to beat the shit out of him.
He really has it coming. Like, she sort of dissociates after that. It says she walked from the yard like one asleep, not knowing where she was going.
Yeah.
And then Hunt finds her and tells her that, that there are inns that they could sleep at. And it says she shook her head. She did not want words with Hyle Hunt. Which, if you are, I don't want to say she was dissociating, but if you were in a state after having suffered the kind of verbal abuse that she just did from Tarly and like just the disrespect, and it's triggering all of these things you feel about yourself and all that, like, ways you've suffered, you know, all the attacks that you suffered, you know, all that shit. You don't want somebody who participated in that to be the person who's trying to comfort you or talk to you in this moment or even see you in this moment. You don't even want them to see you, you know?
Yeah.
And I just really felt that. I just really, really felt that. Shook her head. She did not want words with Hyle Hunt. And I just was like, yeah, no, of course you don't. Yeah. So he tells her, Hyle tells her to meet me tomorrow at the Stinking Goose. And her and Pod go find some place to sleep, which ends up being like on a ship.
Yeah. What is it called? The Titan's Daughter?
They end up sleeping on a ship called Strider.
Oh, okay.
But they do see a ship called Titan's Daughter, which made me think, I was like, is that the name of the ship that
That's
Arya
what
was
I
on?
was thinking. Yeah. Actually, it's probably in Austin's info corner.
Oh, we're going back.
Let's go ahead and look at that.
Circling the block. Back to the corner.
Right. I don't see it mentioned here. So I think it is. And I think maybe just Austin just didn't mention it. But I'll double check.
But yeah, but they do mention that. There's another one called the Goldtown Girl.
Goldtown Girl!
They think that Brienne is a whore and told her that his ship was not a bawdy house. I love that. A bawdy house. So yeah, they find the Sea Strider and that's who lets them sleep, you know, in the bunks down there that aren't being used. But also, they ask her, are you going north? And she's not, but she's tempted to say not yet. Oh, wait, is that not the one they sleep on? Because it says after that, they make their way to the next pier. Oh, no, so they don't sleep on that one either. Eventually, they find a boat, y'all.
Who can tell?
Right?
It's fine.
Eventually, they do find a boat, and they sleep the night, and this is when she can't get any rest. She has nightmares. She wakes up multiple times. One time, she wakes up with a knife pulled in her hand, having nightmares of Nimble Dick, and also like the mummers that she just killed Shagwell, but then also Tarly is in it and Vargo Hote's in it. It's the Red Ronnet Connington, which I don't really remember that one, but he's in it as well. And she just wakes up sweating with a knife in her hand. It's just been a terrible night for her.
Oh, and I wanted to mention, a bunch of people have like said this to us on Facebook and in the Discord, but that you and I were talking about her fighting Loras and that we wondered about it. But that's the fight that she was in the middle of when Catelyn comes to see Renly.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
I do now.
Yeah, that
I
melee.
didn't then.
That was she was up against Loras and she had her helm on, so it took a minute before Catelyn realized that she was a woman.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah.
So they meet at the Goose. My God. I just want to say that when Hunt shows up later and is like, oh my God, I hope you didn't eat. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same fucking thing. How many times do you have to say the sausage was gray? Why? Why would you have it? And they had to boil the water, which I guess is probably standard, but also, why? What are we doing?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like, I understand if you don't have a lot of money, but she's got some resources. You could have gone somewhere else. I mean,
they had them meet here. They didn't have to eat here.
Exactly.
And she walks in, and the woman behind the counter is like, I remember you, because of course you do. It's fucking Brienne of Tarth. You're going to remember her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you went off with a Nimble Dick. Did he cheat you? No. Did he rape you? No. Did he steal your horse? No. And like, I love that those are the questions that you ask a person who left with Nimble Dick, because everybody just knew what life he was about.
Yep.
And Brienne tells him that he was killed by outlaws. And the woman is like, I just thought he would hang or get sent to the wall. Outlaws, you say, huh? Because that just feels really real. Like, you know how there's always like a person on the periphery, like, you know, they may frequent like your local bar that you go to, or maybe there's somebody from high school, and like everybody knows what their deal is, right?
Yeah.
So when you bump into mutuals, someone will be like, oh, anybody seen Jeff? And then somebody will be like, oh, you know, Jeff is just doing Jeff shit. And you all know what that means because you all know what Jeff shit is, right? And you're just like, oh, whatever happened to that guy? And somebody tells you, and you're like, oh, really? Shit, I would have thought they'd have went to jail, you know, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a very real kind of thing because there's not any real like joy being taken in Dick's demise, right?
No,
it's not like, ooh, did he steal your horse? She doesn't. It's just like, oh, did he do some Jeff shit? Because you know Jeff be doing Jeff shit. I just really enjoyed it. No offense to any Jeffs out there.
full offense. You know who you are, Jeff. You know you did.
So let's see. So Hunt shows up. Can't believe they ate here. Brienne gets all indignant. What we ate is of no concern of yours.
I understand her being on her guard with this guy, but there are moments where I feel like, okay, you could take that stand with something that matters more than this, but fine.
This is definitely kind of like a, can we all just calm down? Can we just relax for a second?
Yeah.
So he's got these maps, and he had the reason that he asked to meet in the morning is because he had a cousin he was going to go ask about the Hound. So this is him showing up with his news, and it's kind of like what we had already heard, that he's last seen in the salt pans, and that he was walking along or riding along the Trident. And then Hunt is like, well, he's probably in this area because if you look at the map, he's basically pinned in. And we've got the Freys up at the Twins, and we've got, you know, Blackwoods and Brackens are fighting, which we had heard about before. Randall is here at Maidenpool. That only leaves so much space. And if he is with, Hunt is saying, even if he could get past the mountain clans, where could he go? And Brienne says, well, if he's with Dondarrion, and Hunt is like, but he's not, though, because my cousin's pretty certain of that. Because Dondarrion's men are also looking for him, according to the cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And they have supposedly put word out that they mean to hang the Hound for what he did at Salt Pans, because what he did was so, like, treacherous and just, like, basically massacred a bunch of people is what they're accusing him of. That they're going to punish him for his sins against the small people. And it says, I know you guys laugh when I say that. I don't.
The small people is just so, I don't know.
It says that Dondarrion has put out word that they mean to hang Clegane because they don't want anybody thinking that he is still riding with them because of how he's been behaving. Yeah. And that Barrack and the Brotherhood really need the common people to be on their side because that's how they hide. Yes. You know? And if the common folks start thinking that they're in league with a monster that, like everybody's portraying the Hound to be, which is actually a really good question because I don't really know what the Hound's been getting up to. Yeah. The rumors of what he's been up to are swirling around and they don't look good, but I don't know how much of it is actually true.
Yeah, it's interesting how much his name comes up, and everybody has him like associated with all kinds of different deeds. And yeah,
I mean, you know, he's just one man. Last I heard.
You heard,
you know, like that they have him being responsible for so much, but from what I can tell, like, is he supposed to be running a band of outlaws of his own, or is he just like a lone man out there, you know, cutting down people left and right?
He's always struck me as a lone man.
Right? So it's hard for me. I don't see him having a whole cadre of men behind him, but it's sort of sounding like that's what they're claiming, that he's got like a band of outlaws and he's just running through the woods, you know, taking what he wants and killing who he will. And I don't know. And then we get a mention of Stoneheart again. Yeah. And she, according to this cousin, is leading her own band of people. And also the rumor is that she is Lord Barrack's lover and that she was hanged by the Freys. They get so close to being right, y'all.
Close.
It's like a little bit of truth mixed with a lot of like nonsense, or like a lot of truth mixed with a little bit of nonsense. It's like so close. But she was hanged by the phrase, but Dondarrion kissed her and brought her back to life, and now she cannot die. So, yeah, there's again, all these rumors that are laced with like magic that are floating around. Again, White Walkers in the north, you got dragons in the east. Now you got the undead Dondarrion, and now his woman, roaming through Western. Well, I don't know. They're in the Riverlands, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of like unnatural magical shit happening.
Indeed.
But it hasn't culminated into a big enough event that everybody is on the same page with it,
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating watching it sort of like slowly bubble up to the surface. Some places it's happening faster than other places, but it's all there,
This is enjoyable. So Mr. Hunt is thinking he's going to go with them.
Oh my God.
She's genuinely taken aback by this.
What's this wee white man? She hit him. She said, "We, I beg your fucking pardon." And he just announces, "Oh, I'm going with you."
Yeah.
And she says, "You're not, though."
The fuck you are.
And he says, "Well, I'm going with Septon Maribel to the salt pans. Y'all can go wherever the fuck you want to go, but that's where I'm going."
Yeah, there's not really much she can do to keep him away from them.
Really,
so.
You know what? And I love that because I'm trying to imagine a contemporary parallel to that, right? Like, imagine saying you're going somewhere and somebody just announces that they're going with you, and there not being anything you can really do to stop them.
Yeah,
that wouldn't. How could? I guess the only. Like if I was at a bus stop and
that's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
That's like the only thing, right? Like some guy tries to holler at me or whatever at the bus stop, and I'm like, nah. And he's like, "Well, I'm getting on the bus too. You can't stop me." And he's right. I couldn't do fuck about it. We would just both get off
to get away from him, and he's like, "Oh, I had to stop at Target too."
Right,
so,
and just like how annoying that would be. Once I thought of it that way, I was just like, "Oh, girl, I'm sorry."
Yeah. I'm like, the main thing for me, I want him to try and like make things right with her a little bit. I want him to, even if he doesn't apologize for his part in that really shitty bet, if he just said, "I saw you fight, and honestly, that was some badass shit. So I feel like we could do some things." If he just paid her the compliment of like, "I respect you as a fighter," that would be something. It's just how sort of like, how he is unwilling to, he materially does stand up to Tarly, and he's like doing things in a lot of ways that you can take as changing his mind about her, but he doesn't do it to her directly enough where she is so like self-conscious that I feel like it needs to be that direct for her to even understand that's what's happening. I'm not sure that she gets how his opinion of her has seemingly changed.
Well, I agree with you. She doesn't seem to see that at all. I mean, it makes sense why she wouldn't. Because she doesn't trust him, or she doesn't trust anything that comes out of his mouth. And she also doesn't trust his actions because she's been fooled by both of those things.
Yeah.
He has pretended to be nice to her and pretended to care about her and pretended to be a decent human being and pretended to really, regard her with respect in the past. So I am not sure him even saying out loud to her directly anything would matter,
I'm not sure. I just want him to.
To what end?
Because that's what's happening. I want him to at least like kind of swallow his pride a little bit and just be like, "Look, I get it. We were shitty, but you are a really good fighter." And even if she doesn't believe it, him making the effort to sort of like pay her that respect would mean something to me, you know?
Oh, to you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how I would feel if we got that. If we got a scene of him doing that, like say like in this conversation that they're having where he's saying like basically I'm coming with you, and when she asks why and he responds in that kind of way of like you know, acknowledging that he's gaining some respect for her and also maybe feels shitty for how he treated her in the past. If that had been included, I'm not sure how I would have responded to that. I think I would have thought he was full of shit because I would be getting it in her POV, right?
That's fair.
If that had been included, I think my assumption is if that had been included in Brienne's POV, then we would have immediately gotten Brienne's reaction to that, which would have been, you're full of shit. And I would have been like, yeah, you're right. He's full of shit. And then if it turned out we were wrong later and he really showed and proved, then me and Brienne both would have been like, oh, damn. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, I don't think it would have been meaningful to me at all. I had to just be like, why the fuck would I believe anything this guy has to say right now?
I wouldn't believe it in a vacuum, but after the way that he like was like, is that your house, Mr. Tarly? Or is that somebody else's house and you don't really have the right to like, and the fact that he gave her credit, I just was sort of, I'm already on the track that I think that's what's happening. So I would believe it because that's where my head already is.
That's fair. I love this when she asked like, if your lord, because she wants to know too, because again, she doesn't trust this fucking guy. So one of the first things she thinks is that, oh, did fucking Tarly send you to fucking follow me again? Because that is a thing that just fucking happened.
Exactly.
So again, this guy, but this is what he tells her that like, yeah, he's not my boss anymore. And that I just his lordship informed me that he had no further need of my sword or my insolence. It's a really nice way to say you got fired. But then he immediately follows that up with, if we find Sansa, I imagine there'll be a big reward. And so Brienne is immediately like, yeah, Golden Land. That's what he wants. And she reminds him that I am on a mission to save her, not fucking sell her. And then his response, because I swore a vow, obviously, because Brienne ends all her sentences with I swore a vow. And
oh, the disdain.
And his reply to her is, I don't recall that I did. And she says, and that is why you won't be coming with me. But I just have to say, for someone who may be changing his estimation of her, he is actively behaving in a way to suggest that it hasn't.
That's fair. I think that he's just insolent by nature.
So then we get like a lot of traveling, and it's a lot of time spent with this Septon who they are traveling with, this merry bald gentleman. And while I enjoyed his meditations on faith, and he had some conversations with both Brienne and poor Pod.
Pod's a real mark.
He really is.
I love him, but
this little old man is he is low in the hierarchy of the faith. You know, he doesn't have his own sept. He's a traveling minister, basically, you know, and he has this as a track that he's on that he does, and it takes him about, I think he says like a half a year to make the whole journey. He just goes around in circles, and he stops at all of these little places and ministers to people and performs marriages and hears confessions and, you know, and counsels people. And it's very what do you call it? It's the kind of work that is with very little big reward, you know?
Okay.
Like he is doesn't have
altruistic.
Well, not that, but it's like he doesn't have followers, you know, like we have seen other of these septons and these sparrows, and they're like all in like little packs together, you know. But this guy travels alone. It's very modest, I think is the word I was looking for.
I see. Yeah.
And he has his cart, and he carries food and supplies, and he, you know, just ministers to these people who are kind of forgotten. Even this path that they're on is not on any of the maps that Hunt has, right? It's these people that he ministers to. At one point, they don't even think that there's people living out here.
Yeah.
And then they start to pop up, you know, and it's so remote and so seemingly outside of all of the big story that's being told in these books. You know, we like if there's small folk and then there's these people who are somehow even smaller than the small folk. You know what I mean, though?
Eeny meeny folk.
Eeny meeny folk. And he tells them, at one point it's mentioned, you know, about how he doesn't have any shoes on.
Yeah.
And he tells them the story about when he took his shoes off and hasn't worn them in 20 years. Because even after he first took his vows, he still wasn't saved, I guess would be the way we say it. And continued to sin. And his weakness was
the ladies,
the young ladies, the maidens, you know. And he took great pleasure in seducing young women and taking their maidenhood. And as penance, he walks without shoes. And then there's a lovely discussion with Pod about what the seven are, and how it's really just one God, Brienne says she was told, with seven aspects. And then there's a lovely conversation about that as well. What else do I want to mention? Oh, the wolves.
Yeah, the wolves. That's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, that was really good too. He warns them that there are wolves roaming that are even more dangerous than the outlaws, and that he hasn't seen them, but there's rumor that there is a leader of the pack that is some great gray she-wolf that is like so powerful she only eats human flesh. And yeah, right? So man, listen, you guys, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Like, they don't actually say the word direwolf, but we all know. Right?
Yeah.
We all know we all know who this is and what this is. And I was just like, ooh, I got all tingly.
Yeah, these are the things that I really did miss in the show. Because I felt like it is so dramatic in its way that it could really have been done well. But they just didn't really want to spend the time on these parts of the story. They had their priorities. And I felt like these stories circulating and not really knowing things and maybe seeing or maybe not was part of what I really enjoyed about the books. You know, the secondhand accounts of stuff that you like already knew more than they did about, but you don't know everything, and you don't know how true some of the stories are. And but yeah, he says that like they travel in a pack of hundreds. They used to be, you know, in the dozens, but the one that's in the hundreds, he's like, I have heard of them. And he's got a dog that he just calls Dog.
I love that so much. I love that. I was never my first cat was named A-Boy because it was a boy.
Oh my God. A-Boy?
A-Boy.
Wow.
I was like 4 in my defense, but still.
That's amazing though. I named my first time that I got to name a cat, I named them Telly after like somebody in the Muppets, I think. I just took a name I liked from something else. But yeah, the dog was like shivering next to him because of the sound of all of them. It was just, you know, he's like, and that dog has killed some wolves. So
exactly. I love this because he's telling them the dog is what keeps him safe. And even they scared even dogs. So that's like, and also dog is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big ass dog. He's not just like a little mongrel. I love that Pod cannot get over his name is Dog. I just love it so much. He is like just deeply flummoxed by it. Like he's just Podrick did not know what to make of a dog named Dog. The boy chewed on that for a while and then said, I used to have a dog. I called him Hero.
Was he? What? A hero? No, but he was a good dog.
But yeah, so this whole thing about the wolves was really like interesting. I'm so glad it was included. And what else do they have? They there's a lot of like just walking and talking with Maribald. There's not like so much that really happens. He does talk about the men, and because they're talking about the outlaws, men. And he makes a distinction between outlaws and broken men, and it was actually really, really profound. And I don't know, I enjoyed, even though it's not so much plot progression, I like the time we spend with Maribald here, because whenever the story, and I mean like the books themselves, right? Whenever the story gets really fantastical at some points,
Yes.
I love when we have moments that ground the story and bring us back down to like the day-to-day, what it's like for regular people who are living through this really tumultuous time, right? And because that is what it's like for us in reality as well. We get so accustomed to only getting the highlights of whatever the story of the day is, or whatever the war of the time is, and we forget about the people that are like boots on the ground sort of thing, And he talks in the way he speaks about it, what it's like for these young men who aren't soldiers and aren't from highborn houses and like really haven't been trained, but some lord shows up one day and says, we raised the banners and now you have to come. And some of them don't even have swords. They just have hoes, and farming equipment. And they run off because they've grown up on the stories of adventure, and then they get out there and they see their fathers and their brothers and their friends die, and their clothes fall apart and their shoes fall apart, and they don't get to eat hardly anything. And then the lord they follow dies, and some lord they've never seen before pops up and is like, I'm in charge now, And he tells the story in such a way, with such compassion and such authenticity, that they ask him when he's done, like, how old were you when you marched off to war? Because the way he has told the story, it becomes so clear that it's firsthand knowledge.
I know whereof I speak.
Exactly. And he says, I was no older than your boy, too young for such in truth, but my brothers were all going, and I would not be left behind. And his brothers all died. One died, never even got to strike a blow. Somebody died from fever. Someone else died from a pox, and someone else died when a mace split his head open. And they call it the War of the Nine Penny Kings. Kyle Hunt is asking, is that the war that Maribald was in? And he says, yes, so they called it. I never saw a king nor earned a penny. It was a war, though, that it was. Yeah.
So there's some info here from Austin.
All right.
And this is very interesting because I actually haven't heard about this. So the first point, George R.R. Martin turned 18 in 1966, 2 years into the Vietnam War. Martin opposed the war as a pacifist and successfully obtained conscientious objector status.
Oh.
He ended up spending 2 years working for AmeriCorps, aiding in legal assistance in Chicago. Even though he didn't serve, he was close friends with many veterans, one of whom was author Robert Jordan, who has a few shout-outs in the series. A year after Feast was released, Jordan was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, likely caused by exposure to Agent Orange, and died a little over a year later. And then there's some quotes from an interview from Canadian Broadcasting Company. On becoming a conscientious objector, he said, the big question they would always ask you was, would you have fought in the World War II against the Nazis? Yes, I would have fought in World War II against the Nazis, but the Viet Cong were not the Nazis, and I didn't think America had any business in Vietnam. On his War in the Books, he said, war is so central to fantasy, and yet it's these bloodless wars where the heroes are killing unending orcs and the heroes are not being killed. I think that if you're going to write about war and violence, then show the cost, show how ugly it is, show both sides of it. There's also the other side, which sometimes gets me in trouble with the opposite side of the political spectrum, the glory of war. Those of us who are opposed tend to try and pretend it doesn't exist. But if you read the ancient historical sources, people are always talking about the banners that stirred their hearts. I think that if you're going to write about that period, you should reflect honestly what it's about and capture both sides of it. So, yeah.
I didn't know that he was a conscientious objector and that he actually got like
Objector status.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I wonder, from what little I know, I feel like that was a difficult feat.
Yeah, if he worked for AmeriCorps, it would make sense. He was like really putting his money where his mouth is. But yeah, so it makes sense. I mean, he does really like, that's such a big theme for Martin, is what does it cost everybody else? The people who are fucking just bystanders getting absolutely screwed.
Yep.
Dying, suffering, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Even like you said, the people who are bystanders, the people who are not actively engaged in battle, but have their entire lives destroyed because, you know, a battalion or whatever rolls through their part of the world and decides to just burn everything as an act of war, you know, so that the other side can't get resources. Meanwhile, all the people are just like, but that's my fucking farm though. What the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
Like all of the sort of collateral damage. That's interesting to know. I'm glad that Austin included that.
Yeah, thank you, Austin.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Anyway, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this sucker up?
No, I enjoyed both chapters. The Brienne chapter, you know, I like the bit with Mary Ball. I don't like the way, maybe it's like just really good effect, but the weight of the threat of rape is just so fucking heavy that I was like glad to start talking to Mary Ball to get out of Brienne's head for a second.
Yeah,
you know?
I get that. I was thinking like, you know, the threat being so much more present in some ways with Brienne, it made me think of the discourse that's been going on with like the Jonah Hill thing. Have you seen this?
Oh, I have seen it. I am aware.
And just like it has spurred a lot of people to talk about men who just want to take women down a peg and who see powerful women as a like something to conquer. And it's not about, I want to, you know, be part of a life like that. It's like, I want to take ownership of that life and turn it into something for me. And that's part of what I think is going on with Brienne, is just a wanting to take her down a peg. And that's why it's so much more of a, like the threat that she offers these men in their masculinity. It feels like really just different.
It's a way to remind her that she's just a woman. That's really all it is. And
she hasn't got anybody backing her up. And how dare you think you can take care of yourself? Like, we'll show you that you need somebody protecting you.
Yeah, it is just I think one of the things that I think I'm struggling with, I'm trying to find a way to articulate this. I am familiar with the idea of like rape being a threat, right? Like you can't be a woman without being familiar with that idea. And then like how it manifests in our real lives, and also how it shows up in our media that we consume. So it's not like George is doing anything that I don't see other places or that I've already read in other stories. But there is a particular way that George uses the threat of rape, because the thing is, you know what it is the thing, like even in this universe and in reality, like rape is rape, right? It's not just a thing that happens to women, right?
Sure.
And in these books we hear talk of like, you know, grown men raping children or sleeping with children at brothels, and men sleeping with men. So we understand it, you know, even in the Song of Ice and Fire world, men are also raped and children are raped, little boys are raped, right? But there is a very specific gendered weaponization of rape in the books that's separate from all the other ways rape happens, right? And the way it's used as a reminder of that you're a woman, is really, I don't want to say unique, but I just feel like it's not something that I engage with in a lot of the other things that I've read. It's so specific. It's so, you must have forgotten that you're a woman. Let me remind you that you're a woman. And, you need reminding that you're just a woman. You know what would be good for you? A rape. Yeah, it's wielded in such a very different way than I'm used to, that it is, but it's rooted in reality, which is why it's so upsetting, because in our day-to-day life, it's not as blatant, but that reminder exists all the time for us every day. Walking from your car late at night,
should have thought twice about being a woman and doing that.
You was outside at night. You're riding on the bus at night. You was in the parking lot. Your skirt, which you was wearing. Like, those are all just saying, don't forget you're just a woman. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, that's interesting. The rape and the way that it's used a lot of times, it's like a threat in a way that, like, well, when we do this, it's going to be, everybody's going to agree this is a terrible thing that happened to somebody that shouldn't have happened. And this is a universe where it's like, no, we know exactly what we're doing and we're weaponizing it in that way. And we're going to state very baldly that that's exactly how it's being used. It's a tool. And
yeah, exactly. And it's so, like, callous too, I think, is one of the things that's really unnerving in this world, It's just said, like, right to people's faces.
Yeah.
In a way that is just like, like, it's kind of like getting punched in the stomach a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you're acting up. You know what you need? Like, what? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. But other than that, really enjoyed.
All right. Well, I don't have any new patrons to greet this week, which is tragic. So if you would like to support the show, go to unspoiledpodcast.com. No, wait, I lied. Don't go there. Go to patreon.com/unspoiled and become a patron. Get some, awesome exclusive content on there. If you want to support the show, but you don't have the means to become a patron at the moment, just go over there and follow me and you'll be getting updates on stuff that's happening. I'm trying to post like a weekly, here's what's coming in the schedule for like live recordings and when things are posting, just reminders of that. And that way, there's a lot of times I'll be like, I'll post something somewhere that finally gets through the algorithm and somebody will be like, I didn't know you were covering what we do in the shadows. And I've been covering it for like literally 3 years. And I posted about it every time I went live and they just never saw the post because social media is garbage. So this whole time they would have been listening, but they never saw it. So let's avoid that. And you just follow me directly on the old Patreon and you'll get all of that info and it'll be great. And I think that's about, and there's also like the free trial thing is now enabled. So definitely go and check that out as well. If you're just sort of like, I don't know all about all this. Well, you can know about all this. All right. I think that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We love you very much.
We do.
Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Chant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.